Join UF Hall of Famer and 14-year NFL vet Shane Matthews every weekday as he brings you all you need to know about your Florida Gators, including news, analysis, and opinions with some of the biggest names in sports. Find us on Spotify, Apple Podcast, Google Podcast, or wherever you listen to your favorite podcast. Or watch us live at 8 a.m. on Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter.
Good morning. It's a live edition, a Thursday edition of PodUp with Matthews in the Morning from the International Diamond Center Studios. Check them out. Fine jewelry, watches, and much more. It's family owned and operated with the largest selection of natural diamond jewelry. Thursday, that means we've got our college football analyst and Heisman Trophy Brent Beaird. We'll also have Mike Morgan from the SEC Network talk hoops. If you missed it last night, Auburn just destroys Ole Miss. Arkansas gets a big win in overtime. Kentucky has a buzzer beater at Oklahoma, and Vanderbilt goes to College Station and defeats the Aggies. I think that's Texas A&M's third straight loss. So they come to the O'Connell Center Saturday looking to break their three-game losing streak. Let's go straight to the Titan More Hotline, courtesy of Comfort Temp. We're joined by our college football analyst and Heisman Trophy voter, Brent Beaird. Good morning, Brent. How you doing?
Shane, I'm doing good. Good to be on with you. The basketball is certainly fun when we're getting down to the last 3 or 4 games of the season. Matter of fact, in that Kentucky-Oklahoma game, my understanding is either toward the end of the game or after the game, they had a little bit of a dust-up between the teams, but nothing big that came out of that. But, yes, there's some big games coming up. I'm glad that game day is in Gainesville on Saturday. That will be fun to watch.
Yeah, for sure. Brent, I don't know what made me think of this, Brent, but the Naismith Award, which is it's basically equivalent to the Heisman Trophy for college basketball. Do Heisman voters get to vote for that, or is that a whole separate deal? I mean, how do you go about getting to be a Naismith voter?
Yeah, that's a whole separate deal. Some of those guys obviously have done it for a long time. I think some of that's kind of tied into whatever organization that you belong to. If you belong to some of those organizations, they also give you the privilege of being able to vote. I mean, obviously, the votes coming down to Cooper Flagg at Duke or Janai Broome at Auburn. I mean, it depends on who you ask will be the better player, but yeah, that will be an interesting vote this year.
Yeah, for sure. On YouTube, brought to you by Quality Plumbing. Cameron wants to know, can someone explain to me why Florida baseball uniforms has the swoosh, Nike, and basketball and football were Jumpman? Basketball and football have contracts with Jumpman. All the other sports at the University of Florida are Nike with the swoosh. But yeah, football and basketball wear Jumpman Jordan shoes and cleats. Everybody else just wears Nike. I am one of the minority that I think the Jumpman logo on a football uniform is just dumb. Basketball is great, but I think it just looks stupid on a football jersey, quite honestly. I'm in the minority there, but that's just my personal opinion. You got a guy jumping through the air with a basketball on a football jersey. So it makes no sense. Makes no sense to me at all. Brent, let's jump right into it.
Yes.
Give us the latest on what's going on with the extended playoffs in the future.
Yeah, they met Tuesday in Dallas. No decisions were made. It was more of a informational meeting, shall we say, as much as it was anything else. They've got other meetings. They'll have another one next month. They will have their big meeting or their annual meetings in April. So that's around the corner too. Now, one thing they did discuss was the seedings. And what they're thinking about doing is the playoff committee on every Tuesday night, basically starting in November, has these ranking shows. So if they're going to do rankings, why not just let the rankings be the seeds? In other words, whatever your seed is, or in the ranking, or the rankings, your seed should be from that. So they're thinking about going that route, making it a lot simpler, taking away some of the subjectivity from the committee, which probably is a pretty good thing to do. But again, the big things they're looking at, and they'll be talking about, it would be not much change in 2025. A lot of that will be probably the same again, except for seedings. But the big thing going on is, do they expand? And they will. From 12, will it be 14 or will it be 16? And that kind of depends on who you read or who you talk to. The other thing is, for the SEC, is will they go to 9 games in the conference? So that has been talked about. The SEC and the Big Ten, they want guaranteed seeds, and that would be at least 4 of them each. And that's one thing they want. And the other thing that's really got people intrigued is what are they going to do in making changes to championship Saturday. I think there's a feeling that, in other words, last year you had Georgia and Texas in the SEC championship game. Well, it's an honor, no doubt, to win the SEC and be able to say you're SEC champions. But people knew Texas and Georgia were going to the playoffs, so there wasn't any real suspense to it except who is going to win the championship. So the thing they're thinking about now is, and all the conferences are, is having like 3 play-in games. And that may be, I'm just throwing that out there as a possible number. We don't know what it would be. And those play-in games would be kind of seeded. You've got your first 2 teams would play in Atlanta for the championship, and then you've got maybe 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, or just 3, 4, 5, 6 that would play against each other, maybe at home sites of the higher ranked team. But again, that is just speculation. There's nothing been set on that. It's fun to talk about. It's fun to think about. But at the same time, nothing new from the meeting the previous week to the meeting this week.
Question here from Dan on Facebook Live, brought to you by Meldon Law. Back to the Naismith Award. I opened a can of worms here, Brent. He says, do former winners get to vote like the Heisman? Like the former winners of the award?
Yeah.
I have no idea.
I don't either, frankly. That's a great question. So I simply don't know about that. You would think they would, but we're not sure about that.
Yeah. So who knows? Brent, I've had a couple people in the past send text messages. What is the latest of the Jaguars? They've started working on their stadium, I think, a little bit, but people still think they're going to come to Gainesville. The other possibility is Orlando. I don't see how in the world they play in Gainesville personally, because Orlando's already set up with everything they need.
Mm-hmm.
They would have to do a lot of building, especially for locker rooms, to meet the NFL specs. Have you heard anything about that?
Yeah, Mark Lamping, one of the Jaguar officials, had an update earlier this week. And what came from that is work, as you said, has been underway on the stadium in the last 45 days. They are about 30 to 45 days to submitting a presentation to the NFL. And this is coming from Action Sports here in Jacksonville, one of the television stations. The news here is that approval won't happen on Gainesville or Orlando at this owners meeting in March, but hopefully by May. So that's kind of the latest that we're hearing as of this week from Action Sports. I'll give them credit for that. It looks like it would be May. Now here, as Shane said, it's what we're looking at is Gainesville or Orlando. So and now it's a May. So good points, Shane, that you're making. So, but probably really nothing until May, which is still a couple 2-3 months away.
Yeah, I'll be surprised and shocked if it's Gainesville. So we'll see. This little nugget that you gave me here about the teams in FBS football that return their head coach, offensive coordinator, and defensive coordinator, and their quarterback for 2025. Pretty amazing.
It is, isn't it? There are 136 teams in Division I football, and only 39 of those are returning their, as Shane said, their head coach, offensive coordinator, defense coordinator, and quarterback. So, and that probably gives you an idea of why we have so much inconsistency in football. And you've got quarterbacks who are on their third or fourth offensive coordinator. Of some of those teams that return, all four of those: Arizona State, BYU, Illinois, Iowa State, LSU, SMU, Tennessee, A&M, and Southern Cal. We'll try to get some more on that list a little bit later. But Shane, I'm sure that doesn't surprise you as much change as we have, does it?
Well, I mean, yeah, the landscape of college athletics, especially football, is definitely changing, and you got coordinators getting out of the game, moving to the National Football League so they can just coach ball, and quarterbacks jumping around. So it's pretty crazy. The quote here, my man Jed Fish at Washington, he wants to go to the NFL model.
The quote is, we should literally just take the NFL schedule. When they have their draft, we can have our portal, and then we can roll. So that's interesting. And look, there are a lot of people who have suggested that, the same thing. There are folks who even have said, why not just let the NFL run college football, since that's kind of what they're becoming. We don't know where all that's going, obviously, at this point, but that has been problematic with college football for years, is trying to get the schedule right, and we're trying to. It's better in December. They moved signing day up until the first week of December instead of right in the middle. They have moved the portal to April and in January. So they're still tinkering with the calendar, and I think they'll be tinkering with it for quite some time.
Yeah, for sure. Mark on YouTube, brought to you by Quality Plumbing, says, if they go to Orlando, where does UCF play their home games? UCF does not play in the Citrus Bowl or Camping World State, whatever it's called now. They have their own campus site. So where the Jags would possibly play is where they have the two bowl games there. Nobody really plays in it. They redid that stadium a couple of years ago. It's not great, but they redid the locker rooms, and I've been in them, and they're perfect for NFL.
Yeah.
So I think they'll be there for sure. This Day in Sports brought to you by Campus USA Credit Union. Put some star power to work in your financial life at Campus USA Credit Union. Back in 1987, the NCAA cancels SMU's entire 1987 football schedule for gross violations of NCAA rules regarding athletic corruption. And they later got the death penalty. All that would be perfectly legal in 2024 and 2025.
Correct. Yeah, there is a 30 for 30 that if your listeners and viewers have not seen it, they need to see it one day, just to see how things worked back then. Listen, even the governor of the state of Texas was involved with this. So it was cheating back then on a grand scale, to say the least.
Yes, it was. The Pound C twins, Mike and Marquise, invite you to try the mango martinis at Spurrier's Gridiron Grill, handcrafted with their J.F. Hayden liqueurs. Try those flavors and find your favorite at shopjfhaydens.com. All right, Brent, let's jump around the SEC. What's going on in Tuscaloosa?
Well, they will begin spring soon, and they're trying to figure out who the quarterback's going to be, and that's between Ty Simpson, who people think may be the quarterback, Austin Mack, who is 6'6", and came over from Washington, where Kalen DeBoer was, and also Keelan Russell is their freshman. He is from Texas, and they think he could be really good at some point too. So we will follow that and see where that goes. It will not be Jalen Milroe. He is going to the combine and to the NFL, and we will see what happens. But I can assure you the passing accuracy at Alabama this season will be better than it was last year.
No doubt about it. Auburn Tigers, what's going on there? Speaking of Auburn, I don't know if any of our listeners watched any of the Ole Miss Auburn game, but I was flipped through the channels, and of course, Charles Barkley comes on with Jimmy Dykes and Cole and I tell you, he is the funniest human being. You got to love. If you don't like Charles Barkley, something is wrong with you.
Yeah, I agree with that.
But he was over there talking to Hugh Freeze as well. What's going on with the Tigers football team?
Well, and I had that game on while I was doing notes for the show, and of course the game was a rout, but Barkley was on for a good Shane, 20 minutes at least.
Easily, I think they were trying to get rid of him, but he just kept rambling.
He did. Oh yeah, there's no doubt. And listen, for what you said, that's why Charles will never lack for a job.
Right.
If he leaves one place, he'll go to the other. Auburn, one of the big things for Auburn, and one of the most improvements they've made is with the offensive line, and that's really what they had to do. They've got Xavier Chaplin, Mason Murphy, Broderick Scholl, or some transfer players that they have got in. That they really needed that, particularly the two tackles. So that's going to help them certainly protect their quarterback. The A-Day game for Auburn is on April the 12th. So, Shane has told us for years, it's one thing to have running backs and wide receivers. You've got to have somebody to make holes and protect your quarterback, and that's what they've done.
Yeah, for sure. What's going on in Gainesville?
Well, a lot of these things I know you've touched on. Steve Spurrier Jr. now on the staff. That's nice to see. I tell you what, I give him a lot of credit. He's been at a lot of schools, South Carolina, Washington State, Mississippi State, Western Kentucky, Arizona, Oklahoma. So he has certainly been around. Deron Wilson has been hired as defensive backs coach. Billy Napier did say that there is going to be a spring game. I was really glad to hear that. I know you've talked about Russ Callaway being promoted to offensive coordinator. So a little bit of newsy stuff coming out of Gainesville.
Yes, for sure. Georgia Bulldogs. What's going on in Athens?
Kirby Smart, did you see this, Shane? I don't know where Johnny Manziel came up during the time he was speaking to the Nike coaching clinic and was asked about Johnny Manziel, and the quote is, "He ain't no champion. Champion of what? Champion of Fireball?" So,
oh, wow.
A little jab there at Johnny Manziel from Kirby. 2 big off-season surgeries. Dalen Everett, the cornerback, had a sports hernia, and then defensive lineman Christian Miller had surgery to repair a damaged shoulder. So those guys obviously will not participate in spring. Quarterback battle, we think Gunnar Stockton is going to be the guy. They've got a couple other guys in Ryan Montgomery and Ryan Puglisi that we'll learn how to pronounce his name before the year's over. But we think Stockton is going to be the guy, and the Dogs will be getting going pretty soon too.
Yes, for sure. The LSU Tigers have a lot of players coming back. They've added a lot of guys offensively. I totally forgot about Harold Perkins coming off an injury. They don't expect him to play in the spring, right?
No, he'll miss the spring. in wet weeks will also miss the spring, too. These are two linebackers, but both those guys are really good players. That's a great point about Perkins. Perkins has been around for a while, hasn't he, Shane?
Yeah, he
and
has.
part of the problem with Perkins is they've never found the right place for him to line up. So hopefully they'll be able to figure that out this year. LSU's got some big games. They play at Ole Miss. They play at Alabama. And they play also at Clemson to start the season. As we've said here on our segment many times, LSU has lost like 5 openers, 5 straight years where they've lost their opening game. So, Shane, I give them credit. They don't mind playing tough openers, do they?
They do not. I believe Missouri starts spring ball either tomorrow or next Friday.
Tomorrow. They
wow.
Sure do. Yeah. They're one of the schools that start earliest. Now, Shane, with the cold weather they have out there, why they do it that quickly, I don't know, but they do. Bo Pribla, who is at Penn State, is going to be their starting quarterback. Brady Cook went to the NFL. It really was a very good quarterback. So we will see where that goes. But yes, they will be starting tomorrow, and they are not having a spring game because of the renovations to the stadium. They're also not having any. The practices are going to be closed, unfortunately, with that. So, but look, this has been a good team. Eli Drinkwith has done a very good job with this football team. And Brady Cook, Luther Burden, some of the guys have moved on to the NFL, but they deserve a lot of credit for their consistency over the last 2 or 3 years.
Yeah. The Oklahoma Sooners hired Jim Nagy. Wasn't he the guy that's really involved with the Senior Bowl?
Yep, the same guy. They sure did. He was with the Senior Bowl for years. Did a really good job. Oklahoma's hired him as their general manager. This is becoming more of a bigger deal now. We were talking about the NFL a few minutes ago. For lack of a better description, this is kind of what you've got. It's kind of like an NFL general manager. But Nagy basically, obviously he knows a lot of the prospects. Jim Nagy knows everybody that he's met, obviously, from that job. So that will be interesting. I give Josh Pate credit for this. He does a really good podcast. Josh said it will probably be SEC media days before people collectively realize that Oklahoma plays a road game at Temple this year. Shane, what's the reaction going to be to that? And that, I guess that's one of those 2-for-1 deals or something like that.
That's unbelievable.
It is, isn't it?
Oklahoma will have probably 15,000 people there, and Temple will have about 1,000. I don't know if anybody's ever watched. Temple has to play in the stadium where the Eagles play.
Yeah.
Okay. There's nobody ever. I cannot believe the Sooners are going to be playing in Philly against the Temple Owls. That is bizarre. Ole Miss is transitioning to Austin Simmons as their guy.
Yes.
Is he going to play baseball this spring or no?
I don't think he is. He's a pretty good baseball pitcher. He's a left-hander. I understand. But he, as they said in the article here, he has paused his baseball career to focus on football. He was their starting relief pitcher, had the lowest ERA on the team. How about that? But he is when he came to Ole Miss, Shane, he was 6'2", 180. Now he's 6'4", 215. How about that?
Wow. Yeah, that's pretty good. I got a kick out of Mark's comment here on YouTube, brought to you by Quality Plum. He says, we need to get Elon Musk studying these football staffs. I'm sure he can find some waste. That's very true. Greg wanted to know, what actually does an analyst do on a staff? He saw where Spurrier Jr. is on the Gator staff now as an analyst. So you can have 10 official coaches that have like titles, and those are the only ones that can go out recruiting. Now they changed the rule that an analyst can actually help coach. In the past, an analyst was more stand on the sidelines with like a clipboard, take notes, jot down this, that, and the other, help study film. Now they can actually coach. But what most teams do is they'll take, let's use Bubba Spurrier, for example. They may say, hey, you're going to help with the receivers, or you may help with the running backs, you may help with the quarterbacks, whatever. And what they'll do is they'll assign him an assignment when they're preparing for Tennessee, and he's going to break down all the third downs. They're going to give him a job to do. He'll do that. But now analysts can actually help coach, which is a big difference, because in the past they couldn't. However, some did. Some got in trouble. Some didn't. So now you can have as many people as you want coaching, but only your official 10 coaches are allowed to recruit. So hopefully I explained that well enough. Brent, before we get you out of here, give me some more nuggets.
Yeah, I'd be glad to do that. South Carolina will be practicing soon. We know Lenore Sellers comes back, and one of the things they need to do is redo their receiving core. Jared Brown, Nick Harbor, who's really good, Mazio Bennett. Those are some of the guys who will be coming back. Tennessee had an offensive lineman, Andrej Carrick, who is denied a medical waiver, so they're going to have to rebuild their offensive line. If people didn't see this, Nebraska canceled a home-and-home series with Tennessee in 26 and 27, and they were not happy about that at all. And Shane, you can imagine this. You get a game canceled next year, it's not easy to find a replacement, is it? So they're having to pay like $500,000 to cancel the thing. Steve Sarkisian said they're not going to have a spring game, but they're going to have a fan day with autographs and photographs and things of that nature going on too. And a little bit from Florida State. Mike Norvell is really happy about Squirrel White coming over from Tennessee, and Deuce Robinson at wide receiver too. Now Miami, obviously with Carson Beck not being able to play in the spring, they've got to have some quarterbacks, and Luke Nickel and Emory Williams, Judd Anderson too, are going to be some of the guys that will be helping them out at Miami. So, but Shane, we will keep folks updated on the meetings that will be going on. I know there'll be a lot of behind-the-scenes stuff with the college football playoff, but that will be the off-season story over the next few weeks.
Yeah, for sure. Before we get out of here, Greg on Facebook Live, brought to you by Mellon Law, says SMU shows they still have money with their resurgence in football last year. I'm going to tell you right now, I would put SMU money up with Texas and Texas A&M money. I think they have that much. They got so much money at that school, it's crazy.
Well, and look, they have so much money that they actually refused getting paid by the ACC the first few years.
That's right. They have that much money.
Just to get in the conference, yes.
Yeah, no doubt. Brent, good stuff as always, my friend. Have a great weekend. We'll talk to you next week.
You too, brother. Take care.
That's Brent Beaird. Join us on the Titan Tomorrow Hotline, courtesy of Comfort Temp. Quick timeout. Come back. We'll be joined by Mike Morgan from the SEC Network. You're watching and listening to PodUp with Matthews in the Morning from the International Diamond Center Studios. We'll be right back.
Our premium sponsors are Campus USA Credit Union,
International Diamond Center,
Meldon Law, QC Kinetics, Dave & Buster's, UF Health Orthopedics and Sports Medicine Institute, JF Hayden Craft Liqueurs, Florida Cracker Kitchen, Los Linderos Tequila, Gridiron sponsors are Baker Sporting Goods, Comfort Temp, Electronics World, Florida Victorious, Gallo Car Wash, Miapa Latin Cafe, Peachland Dental, Quality Plumbing, Ruse Ogre State Farm, Silverback Concrete, 84 Lumber, Big Mills Cheesesteak, Celebrate Primary Care, Dowling Signs, Gator Bait Media, Gator Dominoes, Ironwood Golf Course, Okido America, Tropical Smoothie Cafe, UF Bookstores, Nest and Wow, MG&A Wealth Management. Watch and listen to us live on Facebook and YouTube. Listen to the podcast whenever on Apple or Google Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you listen to your favorite podcast. Remember to like, follow, and subscribe so you don't miss an episode. To become a sponsor, call my man Freddie at 352-284-3733.
Make plans for Thursday, February 27th to be at Spurrier's Gridiron Grill to raise a glass to our Elijah Craig Single Barrel Launch Party. Be a part of an exclusive evening as we unveil our 9-year-old uncut Elijah Craig Single Barrel. Only bottled at 121.1 proof. Enjoy indulgent bourbon-inspired bites served in a casual mingle-style setting with a Spurrier's twist. Your ticket includes one exclusive bottle of Spurrier's Elijah Craig Single Barrel, signed by Steve Spurrier himself.
It's going to be a great night. Get your tickets at spurriers.com.
Naysayers, setbacks, injuries. Life throws a lot of hurdles your way. The key is just keep jumping them.
I'm tired of you living in pain, and I want you to get real lasting relief from chronic pain in your knees, back, shoulders, and hips. QC Kinetics can get you moving again with cutting-edge regenerative treatments with no drugs, no downtime, and no surgery. Stop putting it off. Call now and schedule your free consultation. Call QC Kinetics now in Gainesville, Ocala, and the Villages. 352-400-4550. 352-400-4550.
Welcome back to the International Diamond Center studios. There are many car washes in Gainesville, but only one Gallo car wash, locally owned by UF alum, and the only car wash that provides NIL opportunities to Gator athletes. Locations Northwest 13th Street, Southwest Williston Road, and coming soon to Jonesville. Back to the Titan MR hotline, courtesy of Comfort Tent. We're joined by the SEC Network's Mike Morgan. Good morning, Mike. How you doing, bud?
I'm doing good, Shane. Good morning to you, and good morning to PodUp Nation.
Yes, indeed. Before we jump into it, I want to give a shout out. If you're interested, the Elijah Craig Barrel Bourbon release tonight at Spurrier's. Coach signed every bottle, and every participant gets a bottle to take home. They have 9 tickets remaining. So if you like bourbon and you like the head ball coach and you like his signature, I guess go to spurriers.com and you can buy those 9 remaining tickets.
I love that. I'm a bourbon guy, and I've been on the bourbon trail, and I've been to a number of those distilleries. I've not been to Elijah Craig, but I do have a bottle at my house. Without Steve's signature. So, Steve, if you're listening, hook a brother up, will you?
There you go. There you go. All right, Mike, let's start first. Let's go back to the Gator game Tuesday night. They lose. They dug themselves a hole. I mean, look, I talked about it on my show. You know, you get all these people, the Gators didn't come out prepared to play. They didn't want it bad enough. I'm like, I don't buy into any of that stuff. Georgia shot the lights out. I mean, they had 27 points in the first 8 minutes of the game. Every rebound, every loose ball, like bounced directly to them. It was just the perfect storm. And then we kind of weathered the storm, got our feet underneath us, and we made the huge comeback. Give me your thoughts on the game.
Yeah, to say that they weren't prepared or ready to play is silliness. Coach Golden's always got them ready. They They go to practice. We have access to their shoot-arounds. I've never seen a Florida shoot-around where they don't work, they're not prepared, they don't scout, they're not ready. Sometimes a team is just better, particularly on the road, on a given night. Now, if they play Georgia 10, I did the Florida-Georgia game in Gainesville. That thing was an absolute massacre. Same two teams. So what happens? I mean, it's like you said, sometimes it's just not your night. Sometimes it's their night. If they played 10 times, Florida might win 8 or 9 times out of 10. But you and I were talking over the break. Georgia had to have that game. They are very much on the bubble. They had to have that game, and they knew it. And they played lights out. Give them credit. They were prepared. They did enough to win the game. But I don't think it changes a whole lot for Florida, quite honestly. And I wouldn't be obsessed with, are we going to be a 1 or a 2 seed now? Do we go fall off the 1 line? Florida's resume is so strong right now that barring a collapse, you're going to be at least a 2. And the difference between a 1 and 2 is negligible. It really is. You and I think I talked about this a few weeks ago. I'd rather be closer to home as a 2 than farther away as a 1. And you give my fans a chance to show up, gobble up tickets, and have a presence in the crowd for so-called neutral floor games. So I wouldn't be alarmed by it. Sometimes I think secretly, sometimes coaches want a little wake-up call this time of year. You don't want everything to be just smooth and gravy. And then all of a sudden you face a little adversity and you get bit in the first round in March, which quite frankly is what happened to Florida last year. So I'm okay with it. It's not a massive deal. Florida's got plenty of big games left, and I'm sure will show itself very well.
Yeah, for sure. All right, before we talk about the other league, the Gators host A&M Saturday. Game day is going to be in Gainesville. This time last week, the Aggies were one of the 4 teams that were going to get the double bye in the SEC tournament. I believe they lost 3 in a row, and now they have to go to Gainesville. They're heading in the wrong direction right now.
Yeah, it's just one of those deals. This is why I always have a little bit. I love the job that Buzz has done. I mean, I remember what A&M was before he got there, and it wasn't great. But it's hard for me to fall in love with them because they go through these. They're like a baseball team that's decent hitting but not great, and they go through these slumps, these collective slumps, where the defense might travel, but sometimes the offense doesn't show up. Now, I think Coach Byington has done as good a job of coaching as anybody in the country. The fact that Vanderbilt is going to go to the NCAA tournament, remember they did next to nothing under Jerry Stackhouse for 4 or 5 years? And in year 1, this guy gets the job, has to completely turn over the roster. That is a bunch of new players, many of which are transfers from mid-major schools, guys that wouldn't have gotten an offer at many other SEC programs, and they're going dancing. I mean, I'm convinced of it now. Again, I'll have them later at the end of the year at Georgia. That would be the clincher if they could pull off another road win. But to go back to A&M, this is why I don't put them in that same tier as Auburn, Bama, Florida. I just don't think they're there, or even Tennessee for that matter, because at some point, Mark Wise says this all the time when we do games together. Coaches love to talk about defense and rebounding, and we know it's important. It's like saying blocking and tackling is important in football. Duh. But teams, eventually you got to score. And
I agree.
And A&M can just be too inconsistent on that end of the floor.
Yeah, I'm with Mark Wise. That's what I tell I don't care about the Gators defense. I mean, yeah, you want to defend a little bit, but sometimes the other team can just make shots. If Florida makes shots, they can beat anybody in America. If Florida misses shots, we're going to lose. It's that simple. I mean, you got to score the basketball. Conyer Ron has a question. Who are some of your Coach of the Year candidates?
Well, I just mentioned one of them in Byington. The obvious ones would be Todd Golden and Bruce Pearl to go along with them. I'm sure even Mark Pope will get consideration. I'm a voter for the Wooden Award. I don't get a Coach of the Year award. I get one for football, but not for basketball. So I'm not sure if you get first place, second place, third place. Those names will be on virtually every ballot in my mind. So then it comes down to, do you vote for the guy that did the best job in terms of had the best season? Well, then it's going to go to Bruce Pearl. Or do you look at who did more with less? Florida's got a great roster. I mean, you've talked about it. I think Todd Golden's done a great job, and he's the guy that put together that roster, so he gets all the credit for it. But I think they're one of the most talented teams in the country, so I wouldn't say the more with less argument. That goes to Vanderbilt, and that goes to Byington.
Yeah, and I would throw Dennis Gates' name in there as well.
Yes, I'm glad you mentioned that. He definitely belongs in there.
They were 0 for last year in the conference, right? And
yep.
Look what they've done this year. So very, very impressive, no question about it. I guess it was a big win last night for Arkansas at home, and then Kentucky had a buzzer beater against OU, and then the Auburn Tigers I watched some of that game. Ole Miss cut it to like a 6-point game, and then I did a few things, came back, and it was like a 28, 30-point game. I was like, what in the world happened?
Yeah. No, they just take your breath away. I mean, they right now are so connected. Obviously, everybody knows about Janai Broome, great college player. I don't know what he's going to do at the next level. I don't particularly care. I just know that he is as good as anybody in college basketball. It's going to come down to him and Cooper Flagg for the Wooden Award for best player in college basketball. But it's more than just him. It's this collection of guys. And I've covered enough Bruce Pearl teams to know that typically they're not full of like lottery picks. These aren't Cal super loaded 5-star recruit teams. These are teams full of good players that fit his system, that if you give them enough of those kind of guys that all buy in, they're a real pain to cover. They're a real pain to cover on offense. They get after you on defense to the point now where it's just so difficult to score on them. Now, look, Florida showed a couple weeks ago that they're vulnerable too. They're human too. And Florida went in there and put on a smoke show display. But that is the exception of the rule. Auburn is just damn good. And again, it's really hard to find a flaw in their game or in their roster.
Yeah, I agree 100% with that. Chris on Facebook Live, brought to you by Mellon Law. Question is, why doesn't Florida get more credit nationally for going into Auburn and blowing them out?
Well, they did. Here's the thing about basketball compared to football. They did for about 72 hours. Florida was the toast of the town. And then it's like, okay, it's another schedule of games. You know, you play 2 a week. You get 1 bye, but you basically play 2 a week. So at that point, Florida got. Now maybe he's talking about some of the basketball polls. Maybe he wanted to see a bigger jump on that. And I would say to that the polls are meaningless anyway. They're worthless. I mean, come Selection Sunday, the AP and the coaches poll will mean nothing. The net will mean plenty, and the committee will look at Florida. And really what, for Florida coming down 1 versus 2, will probably come down to the SEC tournament. Do they make another run in Nashville? And if so, they've got a really good shot at a 1 seed. And if they don't, I don't think they fall below the 2 line. So I think either way, they're going to be in really good shape from a seeding standpoint. Everybody, when they fill out their brackets, will have Florida minimum Sweet 16. And I think it'll be a very popular pick Final Four. Florida's no longer a great secret. I mean, on top of everything else, Shane, I think people just love watching this Florida team play. I think they love watching Clayton, Martin, Aberdeen play guard. I think they love the Condon story. I think they love Houck being that Energizer bunny. Chinua, I just think that people watch that team and they're like, man, that's a fun team to watch. I'll tune in and watch them for 2 hours, even if I'm not a Florida fan.
Yeah, for sure. And I think a lot of people don't realize too, Auburn, even though Florida went to their ballpark and beat them like a drum, they have like 15 quad ones wins, and Florida has like 6. And, when they go to Joe Lenardi and all those guys that do bracket, they factor all that in. So, it is what it is. Florida's a very good basketball team, and we'll be all right. Mike, I wanted to ask you, getting off of basketball for a minute, because I know you're an NFL draft junkie. Are you a combine junkie?
Yeah.
Too? You are?
I'm not a combine junkie. There was a time I would actually tune into the NFL Network and watch a bunch of guys in shorts and a T-shirt run the 40. I've kind of dialed it back. A lot of the best players, as you know, Shane, don't even show up. And right. I'm really obsessed with the quarterback draft every year. And for the Tennessee Titans, I know they want one, but honestly, I would take Abdul Carter. Cam Ward and Shedeur Sanders, no matter what you think of them, you listen to any NFL kind of scout or draft guy, those guys wouldn't have been even in the top 4 quarterbacks a year ago. They weren't going to go ahead of Jaden Daniels, Drake May, Caleb Williams. In fact, most of them wouldn't have even gone ahead of Bo Nix. Like these guys, it's a reach if you're going with Shedeur, Cam Ward, number 1. Now, as we know, teams will desperately go after a quarterback. They'll overdraft quarterbacks because you can't win without one. But it is not a very good quarterback draft this year. It was great last year, and it's supposed to be very good next year. This is almost the year you don't want to have to take one, but certainly somebody will. There's a good chance both Ward and Sanders go in the top 5.
Interesting. Andy's question on Facebook Live brought to you by Mellon Law. Mike, what's your take on the NFL's first downs now being measured electronically? Could that come to college football?
Is that a done deal?
I don't know.
Or are we just experimenting?
I have no idea. Andy's usually on top of everything.
No, he is. He's sharp.
I haven't really paid attention to what's going on in the NFL, but eventually that's going to happen. You would think.
You would think. I mean, I've been screaming for this for years, in both college and pro. The technology is there. We replay the hell out of everything else, but we're okay with just arbitrarily having 2 people holding a down marker and a chain. For those that don't know, the field in college and pro is like 53 plus a quarter yard wide. So those guys are not exactly right on top of it. And in a pile of 22 oversized grown men, they run up there and just kind of ballpark it. I mean, the worst that we saw was the Buffalo Kansas City game, where clearly it looked like Josh Allen had the first down, which changes the complexion of that game. And you've got one guy one line judge who has first down. The other guy says, no, it's short. And there's really no, you're the near side, so you have this call. You're the far side, so it's completely arbitrary. One guy just declares, I'm the alpha male. I say it's here. And that's how are we deciding NFL playoff games on such a ridiculous, arbitrary measure? I hope that they change it to that. And I hope the college game goes that way as well.
Yeah, Kanye Ron asked on YouTube, brought to you by Quality Plumber, are they putting sensors in the football? They're going to have to do something. I don't know exactly. I want to say a few years ago in the USFL, and I watched a couple of games, not the whole game, but I think they had something similar to this. They had sensors in the ball, and the kickers could not make field goals because of the sensors were harming their accuracy, and the quarterbacks complained about the ball. So I don't know. I just remember that, and I was like, good gracious. You would think in today's technology they could figure out some way to put sensors in the balls that don't affect how they fly. But
I agree. Or even, we're getting in the technological weeds here, but like in tennis, they have the Cyclops or whatever, and it's just a laser that goes straight down the line. I don't know if they put anything special in the ball, but the Cyclops is able to pick up on the ball in or out. I would think you could do something like that even without a chip in football. It can't be that complicated. It just can't be. And if the kickers have a problem with it, we'll just take that ball off the field when a kicker's there. I'm sure quarterbacks could find a ball that's got a little chip in it. That I don't think Josh Allen, for example, or Pat Mahomes is going to be complaining about, I used to be able to hum the ball 50 yards on a rope, but now with this chip in there, I'm all over the place. I'm erratic.
Yeah. So before I let you go, I don't know. I think the Gators are 8-0 in baseball right now. You've been able to catch any of their games at all? And obviously the SEC's loaded once again.
Yeah. I mean, at this time of year, it's more of a macro look. So I'm keeping an eye on just the league as a whole, which, as you mentioned, is absolutely loaded. And adding Texas and Oklahoma just makes it even more loaded. So, Florida is certainly up there. I think last year's team, even though they made it to Omaha, was really flawed. That's rare because Kevin O'Sullivan usually has one of the best rosters top to bottom in college baseball. And I think that'll be the case again this year. I think he's got better pitching than he did a year ago, and that will fall in line with programs like Texas A&M and LSU and the ordinary list of juggernauts and heavyweights. But the SEC will be well represented, and I'm sure the funny thing is Florida could have a better roster and then not make it to Omaha, right? I mean, that's just the way baseball is. Florida's team didn't look like an Omaha team at all. It looked like a team that could barely get in the tournament, but then they turned it on at the right time. This year's team is clearly better to me, even though they lost Caglione, but that doesn't mean they're going to be in Omaha. So sometimes you never know. I don't start really looking at stats and records until we get to mid to late March, where you've got at least a couple of conference series in the books, and then I'll start making judgment. There's too many teams now that load up on cupcakes, and you got guys out there that do not resemble SEC pitching. So the offensive numbers in particular are very misleading.
Yeah. All right. Before we get you out of here, for all the folks out there that are Utah Jazz fans listening to our program, you might be on the call this week, right?
Yeah, barring some type of miraculous recovery. I've done a lot of Atlanta Hawk games here, and one of my former college football directors works for the Jazz, and so I've got a flight booked to Salt Lake City. Going to do a little NBA, which I enjoy. They're having a tough time, but they've got some former SEC guys, including Walker Kessler. Speaking of Auburn, he was the transfer from North Carolina, great shot blocker. And they've got Markkanen, who's a kind of a Euro sensation. But there's always just amazing athletes. And now when I do an NBA game, I look at both rosters, and again, it's SEC players all over the place. The SEC has more players in the NBA than any other league. That includes the Big Ten. That includes the ACC. So,
I didn't realize.
Yeah, a lot of people be surprised by that. You look at the first round picks the last 4 or 5 years, more SEC guys than any other conference. That's going to be the same thing this year in all likelihood. So just the ability to kind of dominate another sport in terms of talent, just like it is in baseball and football. You're now seeing that in the NBA as well.
Yeah. Well, good stuff as always, Mike. We appreciate you joining the program, and we'll talk to you next week, my friend.
Yeah, quick plug too, JC and Morgan, the podcast. I know we have a lot of Florida fans that tune in. We had Tony Barnhart on yesterday. He was outstanding. If you want to tune in, we're on YouTube, Spotify, all that good stuff. Just a couple guys talking college football year-round, much like you do on this show, Shane.
Good stuff as always, buddy. Take care, and we'll talk to you next week.
You got it. Look forward to it. Thanks.
Yeah, Ruse Ogre State Farm offers a team of dedicated insurance professionals ready to help life go right with the right insurance options for you and your family. Visitogreinsurance.com. Give them a call, 352-240-1779. Appreciate Brent and Mike joining the program. Have a great day, folks. We'll see you tomorrow. Take care.